Words by Entity 9 Silvergen. Chapter 3. Hollow. Some words were hollow. Ethos, pathos, and logos. He knew them well. After all, 3 of the 6 core sides represented some part of them. Logan was logos. Everything about him was logical. Every word he said, it was all to prove a point in the most sound way possible. He presented reasons and left no room for error. It was cold, cunning, and calculating. He loved it. Deceit had to say he was ethos. It was ironic, almost, that someone with the name Deceit represented credibility. But there were 2 sides to credibility, just as there were 2 sides to deceit. It was perfect in the cruelest way. Honest or lying, his credibility was tainted no matter what he said. Patton was pathos. Out of all the sides, Deceit loved hearing Patton's words the most. His words carried such sheer emotion, it was almost overwhelming. They were so raw and genuine, so heavy with meaning. But right now, they were hollow. Ethos, pathos, and logos were persuasion. Everyone spoke with a purpose, and hints of the 3 appeals could always be detected in them. It could be obvious, it could be faint, but it was always there. Speech was Deceit's domain. Voices were his playground, tone was his song. Warm words were his candy, cold words were his poison. He could always read them. Words always carried meaning. That's why they existed. Hollow words left Deceit uneasy. He couldn't read the tone. It was like someone was just making noise for no reason. They were still words, those elegant, carefully formed words. But they weren't words. They were just speaking. They weren't communicating. It was like they were just talking for the sake of talking. In this case, they was Patton, and that made it worse. "Kiddo?" Patton called, knocking Deceit's door. Deceit didn't move. He felt strangely empty, like he had nothing left to give. No will, no purpose. He was spent. Normally, he'd feel silly for crying so hard, but he didn't feel anything. He was hollow, like Patton's words. "You okay in there, kiddo? The others said they hadn't seen you in a couple of days." The words were created to be caring, but Patton's voice just didn't carry that notion. They were empty, a formality. Deceit was certain he didn't really care. "Go away, Patton," Deceit mumbled into his pillow, raising his voice just enough to ensure Patton heard. As his lips moved, he was absently aware that his pillow was damp with leftover tears. It was an unpleasant feeling, but he made no effort to move. How long had he been here? Patton said it'd been a couple of days. He knew he hadn't been crying for that long. Had he really been lying here in his own self-pity for 2 whole days? Patton was silent for a moment, and Deceit felt something in his heart for a split second that might have been guilt. It was quickly washed away by the heavy, foggy feeling clouding his head and chest. "You sure you're okay?" Patton asked. Deceit squeezed his eyes shut. "Just leave me alone," he practically begged. He didn't want to listen to Patton's voice anymore. Not when it was so painfully obvious he came here because it was expected of him. He was morality, after all. Checking on Deceit was the right thing to do. Patton didn't actually care. Deceit would know if he did. "If that's what you want, Deceit," Patton said, and Deceit crumbled his hands. No kiddo, just Deceit. Being turned down probably made Patton forget his facade. He was probably relieved he didn't have to keep up his caring act anymore. "It is." "Well, hope you feel better. Come join us for supper if you're up for it." There it was, that formality again. That empty, hollow formality. Speaking for the sake of speaking. Patton didn't mean a word he said. He didn't want to say those things. He just thought he had to. It was as clear as day. Deceit wasn't having it. He wasn't going to fall into the same verbal dance. Closing his lips, he didn't give Patton the grace of responding with his own hollow, meaningless noise of confirmation. He was a liar, but there were some things he couldn't bring himself to do. Patton lingered for a moment before turning away, his footsteps telling Deceit he was once again left alone in his despair.